industry, this was a tough industry to evaluate. There were a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that aren't readily obvious that we really had to drill into and really had to reach out to experts. They've done a great job for us doing analysis of the digital media sector. We've done this for the medical device sector. And you just saw the results for the fashion apparel industry sector, and Eric knew I was going to do this. We have one on May 5th. We have the financial services industry cluster analysis. We're going to be releasing the findings of about a 6-month project that we've done to evaluate the financial services cluster in our state. And it's going to be exciting because that ends up doing work across all of our industries. So you can find that information about it at www.enterpriseseattle.org, and we'd love to have all of you there at Washington State Convention Center. So that's the small commercial. But you know, one of the things I got excited about when we first heard about this, I mean, you mentioned fashion and apparel to a lot of folks in the Seattle region, and they kind of go, what? You know, I don't understand. And then you start to say things like Nordstrom's and REI and Cutter and Buck and Tommy Bahama and Eddie Bauer and K2 and Lulu Yang, and then everybody goes, oh, well, yeah, okay, I understand that. So that's why this was a fun project to work on. And it really came about because the folks at Washington State University came to us several years ago and said, look, we know there's some substance here and there's a real driving economic force here, but we need to have a much richer understanding. So we worked really closely with Washington State University and the Workforce Development Council to put this together. I want to also point out that Karen Leonis with WSU did a fantastic job adding her advice and expertise to the project. So thank you for that. But we've got an amazing panel here for you today, and they're going to share some of their wisdom and some of their insight. Let me introduce, we have Kelly Krause with REI. We have Dean Holly with Thomas Dean and Company. We have Shalon Foster with Fashion Network Seattle. Welcome. And we have Naveen Heaton with Adicor Swimwear. So we're so glad all of you are here. We've got about an hour. And I want to keep the questions fairly short. We've got about 4 questions, but I want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to ask questions. And this is a small enough forum where I think we can actually have a real conversation. So let's try to do that. Be thinking about your questions, please. But I'll start it off. And Dina, let me start with you. Can you tell us about your business, how you got into the industry, and how you and your business came to be located in the Puget Sound region?
Okay. Well, I had a life prior before I had Thomas Dean, and I was the general manager of Nordstrom's product development group. So you know that little sailboat you see on everything? That was a boat my dad and I built in high school. And that was in 1980, and when I started there was me, I did footwear, and then from there, when I retired in 2002, there were 500. And I can't speak anything about Nordstrom after 2002 because I got involved with it. But the reason why I retired was to start my own company, and I've always been involved in the apparel business. Way back in 1969, Steve Miska hired me for Squire Shops. That might be a name you remember. I've always had a foot in the industry, and so it was kind of a goal that I wanted to do. I partnered up with a gentleman from Corvallis, Oregon, who lived in New York. So what you're going to hear is, from me, is a little different than kind of, because I look at the world as my shopping center. Okay, so I have an office in Bellevue. We have 7 people there. We have 4 people in New York and 1 person in Minneapolis. We do our design and sales out of New York in Manhattan in the Fashion District. And there's a reason for that. If you have questions, I can explain that. We do all of our warehousing is done in Kent through an independent warehouse. So we bring containers in through the Port of Tacoma. We do all of our financial work and so forth. Our ERP systems and all that is done here in Seattle or in Bellevue. And we also run our e-commerce site in Bellevue, and which is an interesting thing because that's a whole nother segment, and it branches out. When you find out the amount of money that people are spending in the e-commerce side for just photography, we have our own in-house photographer, but that is huge money going on outside, and actually we use independent studios and rent them out. So our business has been going now for about 4 years, and the economy has been very, very good to us. Last year we grew by about 40%. We anticipate 20% now. Our largest customer is Nordstrom, Dillard's, Neiman Marcus, and we're in about 650 doors across America.
It's
fantastic, fantastic. Well, Shalom, welcome, and can you share with us a little bit about Fashion Network Seattle and the work that you do here and what you think about doing business in this market, and we'd love to get your take.
Absolutely. Fashion Network Seattle started in 2009 after I returned from Paris Fashion Week, and really was interested in trying to find more about local designers and realized no one was talking about them. So founded Fashion Network Seattle. It is essentially a site very similar to style.com with an interesting twist. We host profiles of people within the industry. We cover any fashion-related event. We produce original content. We also produce events. And yeah, so we essentially bring the industry together is our goal. Doing a business in Seattle has been interesting, like someone mentioned earlier. It is very segmented. A lot of designers don't know who each other are. They don't know who other photographers are, makeup artists. So we just try to bring them all together.
Fantastic, fantastic. Kelly, you're with REI. Tell us a little bit about the REI experience. I'm sure there's some members in the audience, I hope, right? What it's like doing business in the Puget Sound region as being such a iconic and large company.
Well, really, why REI is in Seattle is because of our founders. So Mary and Lloyd Anderson started the co-op in 1938, and they were very active mountaineers and couldn't find the quality of equipment and clothing that they wanted, and so they started importing products from Europe. But they wanted to be a co-op. It was really about just getting their friends and themselves great gear, right? And it's grown from there. REI is still the largest co-op in the United States, and that's really so much of our ethos and our culture and who we are. So we're really member-owned, essentially. A little bit more about REI. You don't hear much about our manufacturing side of the business. We have two brands. REI brand is our largest in terms of our own private label. And we're in over 20 departments in our stores, so all across apparel, whether it's outerwear, sportswear, activewear, children's wear, base layer, etc. And of course on the equipment side, so tents and sleeping bags and packs and all that good stuff. And then we also have a cycling brand called Novara, and we do apparel for that as well. Our overall business is about $1.65 billion, and private label is, we're just about between 17 and 18% of that, so we're about a $300 million business. And those are retail dollars, so everything we talk about is in retail dollars. Our corporate headquarters is in Kent. We have about 800 people on campus, and about 80 of those folks are in our manufacturing division. And we are really just like any other manufacturer in that we have a full design staff, development staff, sourcing, product management, etc. there on campus.
Excellent. Thank you. Naveen, tell us about your company, Anacortes Swimwear, and how did you get involved in the fashion apparel industry?
Okay, so Apparel Swimwear is a small company compared to all of these over here. We started in November 2009, and we're a luxury swimwear brand, and basically we target to luxury boutiques locally and nationally. Thanks to the internet and so on and so forth, we don't have any barriers. So it doesn't matter if we're here in Seattle, because I imagine you guys might be scratching your heads, why a swimwear company here in Seattle? But it really doesn't affect us. We can branch out to Miami, California, and Hawaii, right? The reason why I'm in the industry, first of all, when I first came here, I worked for Report Footwear for 5 years, and I worked in design and product development, and I had the opportunity to travel to China every 2 months, so I can overlook production, and so basically I had the opportunity to be from the start to the finish of the product, and with those tools, it gave me the opportunity to go for my passion, which was swimwear, because I'm from Venezuela and love the beach, and so that's how we started.
That's fantastic. Shalom, let me ask you this question. Tell us about what it's like. What are some of the benefits of being in the fashion and apparel industry here in the Puget Sound? What are our strong suits in this market?
It is a small community, so getting to know who are the major players and who is up and coming is really easy. We definitely are extremely friendly and collaborative and open, so we don't have those normal barriers that you would have in New York or LA of trying to break into the industry. It is the barriers are low here. So those are, I think, the two key points here. We have access to money. We have people that are willing to spend money here. A strong ability for locals to buy local. They just don't have the tools to know who that is, and that's kind of where we come in to help them figure out where to spend their money locally.
Fantastic. Now, Kelly, you had said, you know, the founders, of course, of REI are from here, and I know that's by, you know, it just happened, right? We were pretty fortunate. But what, from the company's perspective, what are some of the benefits of being in the Puget Sound region? Why is it, and has it contributed to the success of the company?
Well, I think we all know that as a spectacular area for outdoor activities, I mean, we just love it here, and it's so much about the mountains, the water, you know, getting out, and that's you know, the Seattle culture, I think the Northwest culture, so that's huge for us. And if anything, it's been something we've almost had to break out of as we've gotten national exposure with our stores. We're really infilling in the Northeast, the Southeast, and the Midwest. And we actually had to kind of break out of just that Northwest ethos, because what the outdoors mean to people in different regions is very different, you know, whether it's their climate or the activities they have available. But it is really part of our DNA, and you know, you just think mountains and you think REI, right?
And Dean, can you give us a sense, you've done this kind of work all over the world, what do you think our strengths are in the Puget Sound region, and what are the benefits of being in the industry in this market?
Right now for us, it's the proximity of Tacoma to Tukwila to make delivery on our freight. We work on a cycle. We have a 2-week window that we have to live with our buyers. And if we don't make that 2-week window, I might as well push that container off the side of the ship, literally. So we have a very tight schedule. And you talk about just in time, we have 6 levels of stuff going on. And when that container hits the port, it's cleared while it's en route. It's picked, it comes every Sunday. It's picked up on Monday. It's in our warehouse on Tuesday, and most of the freight is gone by Friday. Okay? And that's very, very important to us. It is so important that I would rather fill a container half full of empty boxes to keep that cycle, because it's more cost effective to do that than to send it somewhere, deban it, and so forth. So the port is very important to us. It's very close to Hong Kong. A lot of our goods come out of Hong Kong, China. The SeaTac airport clears very quickly. All our stuff that comes from Peru comes directly into SeaTac via air. And we have good air routes into there. And then all our stuff from Italy comes direct air into Seattle. So just from a logistical side of it, it's a very strong location for us to be able to process our business in that. The other thing is this is a very strong e-commerce area. And so our head of e-commerce used to do drugstore.com's beauty site, and she's head up. And then, so we're able to find people that understand the e-commerce business, and then once again, back to the warehouse. People that are used to working on drop shipping and just-in-time. These are all things you just take for granted. If something fails, you're out of business. And that's allowed us to grow quickly.
Naveen, you had mentioned you're from Venezuela, and that you know, you could be in Miami or Venezuela or all kinds of places. So why are you here? What are the benefits of doing business here, and how is this community helping you be successful?
Okay, so there's 2 reasons why I'm here. First of all, my husband has 2 companies here, and it's real estate investment and money lending business. So his company is going well and strong. And reason number 1 is because the market here is not oversaturated with swimwear, which for me as a startup business, it makes it so much easier to place my product on the local boutiques and retailers around here.
Excellent. So here's the tough question. What are the challenges to doing business here? What are the things that make it difficult for you to be successful? Dean, why don't you start with that?
The airline schedules. We used to have a nice flight that went direct Seattle to Hong Kong. Now it's Seattle, Narita, Hong Kong. So from that aspect, it's the airlines could do a little better job for us. And I can't imagine the people at Microsoft don't feel the same way with many of my Seattle on that. Regardless of that, You know, there really isn't a lot of negatives. It's, Seattle's, one thing is just the city itself, maybe getting around can be a little difficult. Our office is in Bellevue, so we chose to be there because I live in Bellevue. And then most of my people live south of Bellevue, so they commute in. But overall, we're pretty much supported in everything that we need to get done. I'm fortunate that I've been involved in the Seattle apparel side of the business for, Lord, it's scary, 28 years. So I know a lot of people. We just, and it's a great place to live. And I think that's a big underlying factor for people. Even our people in New York say, "Why, you know, how can we work it out so we could come and live in Seattle?" Because when they come to visit here, they really enjoy it. So that's a big bonus, and I think sometimes we underestimate that.
So Kelly, what are your thoughts? You know, what are the challenges to operating, especially a large company? What are your challenges in the region, in the state? What are things that are set up that make things difficult for you?
You know, surprisingly, our biggest challenge is finding design talent to bring in-house. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. You'd be kind of surprised because you think, especially designers in the outdoor industry would be very interested in living in Seattle. Well, they tend to be independent. They don't really want to work as a committed, you know, in-house employee. And they can work independently, and they can live in Boulder or in Vancouver or in San Francisco. And, you know, they're kind of put off by our climate, you know, even though this is such a great place for the outdoors. And then, as we saw in that chart, I mean, I think for the fashion design side, they're just really attracted to whether it's New York, San Francisco. I mean, that's just, you know, a huge difference in terms of the availability for that design talent here. That's really one of our biggest challenges. And we've been growing recently and really looking for design help, and it's been tough for us. Other than that, I mean, I was chatting earlier about wanting to grow our campus, and you know, in our you know, sustainability ethos, we don't want to add parking spots, but we're out of space. And to put another building in, I mean, because of the City of Kent regulations, we would have to add a huge parking garage or parking spaces, and we don't want to do that. You know, we really drive people to use alternative methods of transportation. So people literally bike in. We have the biggest probably van pool fleet of any company in Seattle. I don't know that, but I would guess that. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like a whole social pod within our organization. It's very interesting. So sometimes the way we do business doesn't fit with our local you know, regulations, like how many parking spots you need for the number of employees we have. But other than that, it's a great place.
So Shalon, you are pretty well connected into the kind of the high fashion community, and so what are the challenges that you hear from a lot of the folks that you work with, and what do you think the challenges are to doing business in this?
Yeah, I think our challenges are very different than sort of the larger companies. We work with a lot of independents, anyone from designers to makeup artists to hairstylists to photographers. And some of the major challenges that we hear are access to funding. They are small businesses, and we're in the tech world, so a lot of angels investors and investors are interested in, you know, the next Facebook or the next Groupon. But so that's one of the major challenges. As far as what I can see, access to trending reports. Seattle is a little late in the game as far as seeing the trends, and our designers are having a hard time keeping up with those. So being able to stay current is one of the major, I'd say, pitfalls of doing business here, is just not having that sort of access. And then education, there is a bit of a break in between them graduating from design school, and many, like you were saying, Kelly was saying, don't want to go into working for Eddie Bauer or Tommy Bahama. They want to be their own independent designer, and not knowing how to run a business. And so there's that break in not knowing when they're supposed to be releasing their spring-summer line, what a lookbook is, what the next steps are into launching a line, how to get in front of buyers. And that's some of the challenges that we've tried to communicate and fix by having designer dinners, having meetings with buyers to sort of figure out exactly how do we get this information in the hands of people that need it.
Well, Naveen, what do you think? What are the challenges that you experience, especially in this market?
The challenges that I personally experience is finding local resources. I would love to have the experience to like just, you know, like the fashion district in New York or in LA, and be able to, while I'm creating a design, be able to touch the fabric and source and have more variety. So saying that, I have to depend on New York, LA, and Colombia for them to like send me swatches and then approve and so on and so forth. So I just wish we would have more local resources here. Yeah.
Infrastructure really is lacking.
So this is the last question, and I'm going to turn it over to everybody here that I have for you. But so just put on a new hat for a moment and think about, if you were in charge, what could the public sector do to better support the industry in the region? Yeah, so you.
First, okay, well, I put some points here. Basically, provide accessible advice and information to new businesses, like how Fashion Network is, trying to provide to the designers and so on and so forth, and photographers and makeup artists. Access to funding, maybe tax incentives for, companies to open new businesses from other regions and come here, and so we can grow faster. That's it. Those are the 3 points.
Kelly, what do you think?
I think Naveen really covered it. I mean, we'd love to see more fashion and apparel business here in the region, because then we would build all of that infrastructure, have the design talent we're looking for. So I think the tax incentives is a great idea. And what do we do to make Seattle an even bigger epicenter of fashion and design?
I agree. I think they're right, spot on. I think we're definitely, Seattle's at a tipping point as far as fashion is concerned, and thank you so much for Enterprise for creating the study, but I definitely think now we need to take the next steps to actually make it happen. It's not going to create itself on its own, and we really do need help in the public sector.
Well, I think there's a lot of, I think the industry's changing dramatically, and it has over the last 5 or 6 years. It's definitely gone more, let's say, online. Basically, all we do in our office in New York is we create an intellectual property. We give a design, an idea, and we send it somewhere in the world, okay? So that requires talent to have that. But more importantly, my biggest concern right now is what's happening possibly with the port. The Suez Canal, or not Suez, Panama Canal is opening up. I know Houston's going crazy, expanding down there. Office Depot, all those people are putting big warehouses in there. And it is our port, Tacoma or Seattle, are we building the roads for the trucks to bring the stuff into our warehouses and that? Because for us to pick up roots and move to Houston would not be a problem. We could do it in a day. Okay? Because that's what's happening with the world right now. And so what we can't do is pick up and move our logistics and that hard infrastructure, because that's the side of the business that's there all the time, no matter what. And I think that's something really important that the state needs to look at. They need to really work with the Port of Seattle to make sure that we don't lose the competitive advantage we have right now. And I know up in BC they're working hard to kind of steal that from us by putting a rail system directly to Chicago. And our goods typically go by truck. And so if you think about it, we ship every major retailer in America almost, JCPenney's, all of them. And all that stuff is going to their warehouses all around it. So if we don't have a good trucking routes and the ability to get that product there quickly, they're going to, we're not competitive. And you talk about just in time. And I think those are the things in our industry that are going to be very important going forward.
So I'm going to open it up to everybody. Now is your opportunity. Yes.
I'm curious about e-commerce. It seems like in apparel that would be difficult because of concern about sizes, and you can't see the fabric or touch the fabric. So how do you overcome those hurdles?
Well, you have a bigger e-commerce business than I do.
It's a way of doing business now, and people are comfortable with it. And we have an ironclad return policy, 100% satisfaction guarantee. We were a little behind on the game in terms of free shipping, but that's something that we added last year, and it made huge uptick in our e-commerce business. So people are comfortable with it. And, the other thing we do, we were actually early in retail on this, is we call you can order and pick it up free at the store. So a lot of people will order it online, go to the store, try it on. Great, I don't like it, I just leave it at the store. That's a good thing for us because they're in our store, and hopefully then they're buying other things as well. But it's not a barrier for apparel. It's the way people are, choosing to buy. Some people aren't. They go back to the store. And for us, it's super important that we have that multi-channel experience. And fortunately, we committed to that very early on when we built our e-commerce business internally versus sourcing it out.
So having the brick and mortar side is an asset for your e-commerce side as well then.
Oh yeah.
So our story's a little different. We're a wholesaler. And that's an interesting thing because I'm in my little box that I check for the Washington State, whatever, I check wholesaler. Okay, well I could be sending out Q-tips, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really say what we do as a business. So we're a wholesaler, so Nordstrom carries our product here, carries it Bellevue all over the country. But yet we also have a website and e-commerce site. So we have to balance the marketing aspect of a wholesaler with the actual sales of a retailer. Okay? We have no brick and mortar. So the type of customer we get might be a customer in Albuquerque that bought our shirt in Dillard's in New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And maybe in that store, which is one of their smaller stores, they have 3 patterns. They go on our website and they see 20, 30 patterns. Well, they've already owned our shirt. They know the fit, they know their size, and then they order it out. And then they get on, and we build quite a relationship. That's our big push right now, is building a relationship with the customers. And I'm totally amazed about that. Yes?
So regarding that, do you have a price differential between when your Nordstrom's carries your 3 different styles of shirt versus what you buy online from you, what a customer would buy online?
We are very, very careful to allow our retail customers to take the lead on that. So we don't go off price till well after all the retailers. There's basically in retail, there's cycles, and there's seasonal cycles. And so our pricing will be at or above what would a Nordstrom be. Nordstrom kind of sets, they're our biggest customers, so they set the benchmark for us. But I can tell you, our shirts sell at Nordstrom for $99.50, so they're not inexpensive. A small men's store in Mississippi, or a large one actually, because they don't have, might sell our shirt for $125. So we don't set price, but what we do is we'll put our price at what our major retailers are at, so we're congruent to what their pricing structure is. And that's, we don't give a suggested retail. We allow them to make that decision.
Charles.
I think a preconception I had, going into this is that maybe a strength for us would be as a gateway to Asia and some of the kind of symbiotic relationship there. And I'm hearing some of that. I think Dina talked about the connection with Hong Kong. But I'm also hearing that maybe it's not so place-based and that we have as much dependence on the airport as we do the seaport with connections to Italy and Peru and Colombia. Can you expand a little bit more on that? And what is the connection to Asia, and is that a strength for us?
It absolutely is. I didn't speak to it. I think Dean spoke to it really well. But really on every level of our business. But in terms of the supply chain, having that connection in terms of the port, being relatively close in terms of Asia. I mean, just like the chart said, 66% of our product is manufactured in China. We're trying to diversify, but that's where most of it is. It's very, very important to us, as well as even the population here. I think just saying ethnically that we have a large Asian population, and many of the people who work with us are bilingual, and that really helps us working with our factories. We're actually just in the process of, for the first time, opening an office in Asia outside of Hong Kong for our quality people to be based there, because we've been flying back and forth, which has been really inefficient. So it's quite important in terms of logistically in our position being close to Asia.
Is Hong Kong the hub on the Asia side?
Hong Kong is is the business side of the world. Okay, the actual manufacturing can happen out in Dongguan, out in the further parts. But there's high-speed rail there. So the whole cycle of how our product developed, it doesn't start in Asia. That's just the end of it.
Right.
The design and development and coloration and all that comes from our New York office. It's sent to a design team in Bergamo, Italy, where we fly. And because we don't buy swatches, we design everything from the ground zero. So every fabric that we use is unique to us, every color that we use. But And then from there, then goes to Asia, where then it's, and not all fabrics come from Asia too. They can come from Turkey, Czechoslovakia, Italy. We haven't done any Peruvian, but they can also come from Malaysia, Thailand, and China, Japan, Korea. So it's really a big world out there, and there's a lot of things going on. But the thing with the airport, I can tell you that we fly our goods in from Italy because it's safe here. I've done stuff through, and I don't want to pick on New York, but a lot of times you only get you lose about 20% going through the port there. It's been a problem.
There's a reality show about that,
It might be, yes. Especially expensive goods, so they go by air and directly here.
Naveen, you've done a lot of work in Asia, as you said earlier. As somebody who's a smaller entrepreneur, are you doing work in Asia right now, or are you?
Not now, because the quantities, the minimums are way too high for the business that I do. So right now we do it locally, and we have local people doing our swimwear. Eventually we'd like to go to Colombia, just because they're better in handling with swimwear. I like their fabrics there and the quality. So, and as well, I know Spanish, so it makes it so much easier for me to communicate with them back and forth. But eventually, yeah, I would love to go to China, but it's step by step.